I am so excited to share that we are preparing for our Great Smoky Mountains National Park section of the Appalachian Trail. This video will cover tips about food and backpacking for 5 days in the Great Smoky Mountains. And I gathered a lot of my information and resources from other YouTubers, and I'm gonna put those right here. The Hungry Hiker and Backcountry Foodie and Gear Skeptic were all 3 great YouTube channels that I got a lot of information from when I was trying to decide what I wanted to pack on my hike. Here are 5 key points that I think are very important to consider when you're planning for a 5-day backpacking trip on the trail. Point number 1, our bodies do not like change. So with that in mind, you might want to pack foods that your body's already familiar with so that you don't cause any gastrointestinal distress. You don't want to be experiencing diarrhea or constipation on the trail. That would be a horrible experience. Definitely not the memories you're after. And I know that's not always possible because on the trail we have to have a lot of non-perishable items. And so it might be a good idea to try to acclimate your body and see how it responds to some of the freeze-dried meals so you can try them out before you're on the trail and see how your body reacts. Also, I like to think about it as a race day. You don't want to try something new at the beginning of a race. So just because a sponsor may have a booth with the new power bar or energy item, you don't want to introduce something new before going hiking. Tip number 2 is that you may not feel very hungry on the trail until about the 3rd day. This is something that a lot of backpackers and hikers experience. They're exerting themselves more than they have on a normal day, and their bodies just kind of kick into that survival mode, and they don't feel very hungry at first. That generally lasts me 2 to 3 days, and then when I get off the trail on the 3rd day, I am starving. And so be prepared for that. Give yourself permission to pack a few less calories the first few days to accommodate for that, especially because you don't want to pack more food than necessary because then that's more weight on your back.
We were just talking about how sometimes you may not feel hungry on the trail, and so you don't want to force yourself to eat and feel sick. But while that is true, one thing you have to remember is you're still asking your body to do a hard thing and you need to fuel. So be aware of signs like maybe a little bit dizzy or starry eye, or if you start to feel shaky or weak, you have to fuel your body to do what you want to do. And so that may include making yourself eat a little bit when you don't feel hungry, just to make sure that you have the energy that you need to go the distance.
Tip number 3 is that variety is good for the soul. I know there has been a couple of backpacking trips where I have packed the same breakfast and the same lunch for a couple of days in a row. And by that 2nd or 3rd day, I just can't even stomach the same thing again. So mix it up. Put a lot of different textures and flavors. Make sure you have salty stuff and sweet stuff. Maybe take a few treats. Candy bars are great. Everyone loves a Snickers bar on the trail. There's just a lot available out there, and I would definitely recommend going to some stores and shopping around and looking for how many different varieties of texture and flavor. Be sure not to forget your sweet treats. I know I said that before, mentioning the Snickers bar, but they really can be uplifting and be a morale booster on the trail, especially right before you climb a mountain or at the end of the day when you've met your mileage goals. It can just feel really good to reward yourself. So I highly recommend to pack a few sweet treats for each day. A favorite sweet treat that I would take on the hike would be some dark chocolate covered raisins. C's Candy has a thin mint wafer that's really lightweight and it's got a little bit of a crunch and chocolate to it. I would take something like that. Depending on the weather, we don't want our chocolate to melt. If we're around a campfire, some lemon honey tea would hit the spot actually.
Speaking of variety and food on the trail, don't count out a little bit of fresh food. So that's kind of maybe my hardest thing of transitioning to trail food is I'm used to a lot of fresh whole food salads and fruits and vegetables, steamed vegetables. So to go to dehydrated food. So it's a great morale booster if I have just a little bit of fresh stuff, maybe for that first day, because that can be heavy, maybe an apple or half a cucumber or something like that, So maybe consider that if that is something that you're interested in.
One of the things I did to add variety to my food plan is that where I would have like a whole protein bar where you would get like 280 calories and about 20 grams of protein, I would substitute that out for 2 mini bars instead, so I could have the variety of flavor and texture. Cliff has a mini version of their builder bar, so instead of eating a full bar, you can get half the calories and half the protein with this flavor, and then throw in a mini kind bar to get that flavor and texture as well. And I also like these little like snacks that are about 100 calories that also give you just a different flavor, a different texture. And so instead of having one big snack, I will try to typically put in 2 smaller snacks to help with the variety on the trail. Tip number 4, knowing your macros can help you balance your nutrients to match what you're doing that day on the trail. How many miles you're doing, what type of elevation you're gonna come in contact with, and how cold it is. All of those are factors when you're considering your macros. And I actually didn't even know what macros were until I started planning the food for the Smoky Mountains section. And my daughter made me a spreadsheet that was super helpful. And she was able to put in all of my food for one day, and she was able to give me a readout of what my macronutrients were, which is a balance between carbs, proteins, and fat. And then she's like, Mom, you probably need a few more fats for what you're doing for that day. And so I went to the store and I started searching for some snacks that I could substitute out that would give me a higher fat content or a higher protein content. I rediscovered macadamia nuts. They are delicious. I haven't had those in years, and they have a really good high fat content. I also found some cheese wisps, and those were fantastic. And they also have a high protein and fat content and a little bit lower carb.
Okay, so April was just talking about the importance of macronutrients, and so we were thinking about macronutrients, and in order for your cells to run optimally, it's a great idea to have the presence of all 3 major macronutrients, so carbohydrates, proteins, and fats. And just the presence of having that will allow your cells to do what they need to do when they need to do it, to harvest energy, to give you that endurance. So check those labels for major snacks and meals and make sure that there's at least the presence of a carbohydrate, protein, and a fat, and then you're going to be good to go.
Tip number 5 came from a really good friend of mine. She said, bottom line, you really need to listen to your own body and learn from your own experience. I think after you've done several day hikes or weekend trips, you start to get a good idea of what works for you, what your body can tolerate, what it might be craving when you're on the trail, and what your energy level was when you were hiking that hike with the foods that you ate that trip. So it's really good to maybe keep a trail food journal and take notes and come back and look and see what worked and what didn't work, and then write that down and calculate your own food plan based on your own needs, your likes and dislikes. It's sort of like picking a backpack or picking a pair of shoes. There's not really a one-stop shop for food on the trail. Everybody is built genetically so different. Our body types all require different calorie counts, and there are a lot of things to consider, but at the end of the day, you need to hike your own hike and pack your own food and do what works best for you. With that said, I love getting ideas from other hikers, and so I am gonna put some pictures up here on the screen of what I have packed for several of the days that we have planned for the Smokies. We are gonna do the Smoky Mountains, the first part of it, in 5 days, from Newfound Gap southwards towards Fontana Dam. Here's day 1. We're gonna have about a half day on the trail. We're gonna be driving to our trailhead, and so we'll be probably eating our breakfast before we go. And each day you'll see one of these pockets right here, and what those are Smart Pockets, and they're yummy. And some days I will do peanut butter and honey, and other days I will do a chicken salad. So this is day 2. This is the day we will be summiting Lehman's Dome. We're super excited about that. And see, I did the chicken salad this day. Here's day 3. This is day 4. I have my keto crackers that I'm excited about. And this is day 5, which is also sort of a half day. We plan to get off the trail before dinner, so there's no dinner meal in here, just breakfast, lunch, and snacks. And I will be taking this whole extra bag of macadamia nuts to share with the other hikers as well. Typically every morning I will do a Carnation Instant Breakfast, the high protein version one. I like the chocolate flavor, and I use my favorite powdered milk. And so you can use any powdered milk over the counter, and this is the high protein one. And I just put it in a bag together, and I take a plastic mason jar so it doesn't break on the trail, and it's super lightweight. I think it weighs 1.4 ounce, and I use it as a blender bottle. And I just put the powdered milk in the Carnation Breakfast, and I shake it up, and I kind of drink it as I go in the morning to get my first calories of the day. I also typically will eat like a Builder bar with it. This is a mini Builder bar. To explain one of my favorite dinner meals. So I use this cute little cozy right here. It has sort of that crinkly inside that insulates it. And I make a loaded mashed potato. So I use half of this bag and I put it in a freezer bag, and I write the directions on the bag, which is add 1 1/4 cup of water, of boiling water to it. And I add about 1/3 to 1/2 of this bag of bacon and these cheddar wisps, and it makes sort of a loaded bacon cheddar mashed potatoes, and it's super good for dinner time. For my dinner, I mix a bag of just regular ramen noodles with a mixture of my favorite freeze-dried vegetables, and I love that. And typically I use the extra bacon that's left over from the bacon and cheddar mashed potatoes that I do on day 2. This is my food bag all packed up for the first 5 days of our trip in the Great Smoky Mountains, and it weighs 7 pounds and 14 ounces, completely loaded, including my cozy and the extra bag of macadamia nuts.
I was asked to kind of go through what my food on the trail for a day might look like. So it'd start in the morning, and I have a protein powder that's actually by Kachava that I would mix with PB protein powder as well. So like a protein smoothie in a lightweight shaker bottle. And then either in the morning or in the morning time or at breakfast, I think I would add these granola minis. And then these are just raw half walnuts. Then throughout on the trail during the day, these are things just depending on how I really eat based on how I'm feeling. So I have this triple berry trail mix, totally packed with nuts and even some pumpkin seeds and some chocolate chunks. So really yummy, packed with tons of good stuff. And then these kind of for a salty, but also protein. I found this new Jack Link's bar, some different bars, like a Builder bar, or I really like these RX bars. This particular flavor is blueberry. Midday, something to eat, maybe if we decide to stop, or if I'm just wanting something a little more substantial, I'm gonna have some sort of bread type thing, like this pita pocket bread, or a flat bread, or a naan bread. Half of it I'll do kind of savory, and I'd eat that at one point in time. I have turkey pepperoni here, but if you wanted more fat, you could just do a normal pepperoni. Then on half of it, I'm gonna use one of these split peanut butter and strawberry. This split brand has a lot of things. They have cashew butter, almond butter, peanut butter with different types of jams. So you just take off the top and put that on half of your pita bread. And for something fresh, I'm gonna do one of these superfood smoothies probably. And then at night, a dehydrated meal, and I really like this. But we just talked about this, and at first I was gonna split with somebody, but I think I'm just gonna, for the calorie load and all of the nutrients and things that are in here, I'm just gonna have this whole meal in the evening.
And then you bring some electrolytes as well?
I do. I have electrolytes, and then I have some sort of shot block or fast quick energy. So I also usually pack some sort of honey or a ginger chew, something like that, if I'm in a situation where I feel like I need just some fast energy.
Perfect, thank you. So trail food, I like to keep it pretty simple. More of a quinoa and a chia seed kind of girl. Because the green bellies, to me, I think they have all the good packed nutrients that you need. If those work for me, then I'll know I can live off of green bellies.
That's right. Or you can always steal from your.
How about pork bellies?
You can take some from your crazy
Skittles?
from your sister who's got a food
like a
problem.
7-Eleven in here.
I know. I've got to really condense
April's
it.
got the Buc-ee's of camp food. Because we're fairly new at this, we would love to hear your thoughts. If you have any advice, please leave it in the comments below.